When I was a young soldier, I learned a really important lesson about taking care of my feet when I was in the field. I was at Fort Lewis, Washington in early summer, and it was extremely wet there. And we had a field training exercise where we would go out and we would do fake patrols for days at a time. And every time we would stop during this field training exercise where we were constantly moving, every time we would stop, one of my instructors would reach into his rucksack and he would pull out a brown standard Army issue washcloth. He would lay the washcloth on the ground, and then he would take his feet and he would take his boots off. He would take his socks off and he would put his feet on top of the washcloth. And then he would let his feet dry out during our breaks. And then after his feet had dried out for a little while, he would bring out some foot powder, put some foot powder on his feet, and then he would always bring a dry pair of socks out of his rucksack, and he'd put on the dry pair of socks, he'd put his boots back on, and then we would start walking again. And during this field problem, my feet were just a disaster. They were completely torn up. They were wet from the inside because I was in wool Army issue socks and all leather boots. So my feet were really hot and sweaty, but they were also wet from the outside because moisture and water and rain was just like seeping in through all of the cracks on the leather. And so I learned a lot about taking care of my feet during that field exercise as I was watching my instructor just be really diligent about taking care of his feet every time we stopped. And every time we stopped, I was like, I just wanted to eat. I just wanted to drink water. I just wanted to rest. But he always put his feet first before he would even eat or drink water. It was a really important lesson that I learned from my instructor at that field training. Today, I am answering a question from a member of our community. And if you have a question that you want me to answer right here on the show, all you got to do is send an email over to hikelikeawoman@gmail.com or shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. I'm not on Facebook as much as Instagram or in my email. So shoot me an email, hikelikeawoman@gmail.com. I'll answer any question you have about hiking, camping, backpacking, adventure travel. That's why I'm here, to help you get outside and explore. So I have a question from a person in our community, and she asked, when do I need a Gore-Tex boot? Is it worth it? What kind of trail conditions should I consider using a Gore-Tex boot? And here's what I think about Gore-Tex boots. So when it comes to your feet, there's two things that really can wreck your feet on a long hike. First is the moisture that's caused by sweat. So if your foot is sweating a lot in that boot, then you're going to get really sore, painful, nasty feet, right? But if you are hiking and there is a lot of water on the trail, you're hiking through snow, you're hiking through rain, you have a lot of water crossings where you can't take your shoes off or your boots off, then your feet are going to get really wet from the outside. So we're fighting moisture from the inside that our body is producing and moisture from the outside that the elements are producing. So that's where a Gore-Tex boot comes in handy. A Gore-Tex boot is going to protect your foot from the external threats, from the rain, from the snow, from the puddles, from the river, whatever it is, from the wet trail. A Gore-Tex boot is going to protect your foot from those external elements. But what a Gore-Tex boot does is it tends to be a little bit hotter and kind of compromise some of the breathability that your foot would have in a boot that isn't Gore-Tex. So that's why I don't say like, go out, always use a Gore-Tex boot or never use a Gore-Tex boot. That's why I think so much of it just comes down to what kind of a trail are you hiking? What are the trail conditions? When are you going on your hike? And let's talk about your feet. If you have feet that tend to be pretty sweaty in general, then maybe a Gore-Tex boot isn't for you. But if you have feet that are pretty dry, like I have super sweaty feet. My husband's feet hardly ever sweat. Like he just doesn't sweat. His feet just don't sweat. And so if you have feet that generally tend to stay pretty dry, then maybe a Gore-Tex boot is totally worth it. Now, with that being said, I will say that right now in my closet, I have 2 pairs of hiking boots, and they are both Gore-Tex hiking boots. And they're Gore-Tex hiking boots because here in southeastern Wyoming, even in the summer, a lot of times our trails are very wet and very muddy. And so I like to make sure that I'm not exposing my feet to those external elements. I've also learned how to take care of my feet, right? And how to keep my feet dry when I'm hiking. So that is what we talked about earlier, changing my socks and drying my feet out, airing my feet out at breaks, all of those things. So if you can protect your feet, if you can be really diligent about trying to keep your feet dry on the inside, and you're hiking in a place where there's a lot of moisture on the trails, then a Gore-Tex boot is a great option. So just a few things to think about when it comes to considering whether or not you need a Gore-Tex boot. I'm Rebecca. This is Hike Like a Woman. Thanks so much for asking that question. If you have a question you want me to answer on the podcast right here, all you got to do is send it over to hikelikeawoman@gmail.com. I also want to tell you about some fun stuff we have coming up this summer. First of all, if you're in southeastern Wyoming, we are doing an Earth Day trail cleanup April 22nd here. Come join me in person or virtually. You can find information on that at our website, hikelikeawoman at hikelikeawoman.com. Just click our events tab. We are also doing a Hike Like a Woman summit here in southeastern Wyoming, May 19th through the 21st. It's a weekend full of workshops, community, and hiking. So it's going to be just a really great chance to come in person in a very informal, low key, but lots of education kind of stuff. It's going to be super cool. I'm knee deep in planning the summit right now. I'm so excited. We're also planning 2 trips to Yellowstone National Park this summer. So in September, we have 2 trips, September 3rd through the 7th. I have 2 more openings if you'd like to join me for that guided trip to Yellowstone. It is a camping trip with day hikes. So we will be staying at an established campground with running water, which is great because I love a shower. And then we have a second trip to Yellowstone later on, right after that first trip. That second trip is full, but if you want to get on the wait list, head over to our website, hikelikeawoman.com, and you can learn about all of our in-person events. So thanks so much. I will catch you guys on the next episode. Cheers.